Cut out on us music-wise. I don't know why. That's okay. Welcome everyone to Quoth Raven, Lewis Pride Raven, Friday night features, genre talk. And this week, my co-host is back, John Norris.
Hey everybody.
Friday night features. Co-host is back. It was my. I had to turn off the volume on my YouTube screen.
Me too.
But it's there we go. Finally showed up there as well. So this week is favorite non-Disney animated films. Also non-manga, because if we went manga, it has to be its own separate show. I mean, there's just not non-manga, non-anime, I should say.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that'd be just its own show. So we're going to go ahead and just get started. I don't know why the music stopped the way it did, but I will invert it and do that. Hopefully I won't do that at the end of the show as well. John starts tonight.
All right. With Balto from 1995, directed by Simon Wells, produced by Stephen Hickner, screenplay by Cliff Ruby, Elena Lesser, David Stephen Cohen, and Roger H.S. Schulman. Story by Cliff Ruby and Elena Lesser. Loosely, and again, the key word is loosely based on a true story about the dog of the same name who helped save children infected with diphtheria in the 1925 serum run to Nome, Alaska. Starring Kevin Bacon, Bridget Fonda, Jim Cummings, Phil Collins, and Bob Hoskins. Production companies Amblin Entertainment and Amblimation. Distributed by Universal Pictures. Release date December 22nd, 1995. Running time is 1 hour, 18 minutes.
Kind of a short film. I thought it ran longer than that.
Nope. So what it's about. And once again, thank you, Lewis, for providing some pictures for some of these this week. So in 1995, New York City, an elderly woman, her granddaughter, and the latter's Siberian Husky, Blaze, are walking through Central Park looking for a memorial. As they seat themselves for a rest, the woman tells her granddaughter a story about Nome, Alaska, 70 years earlier in the winter of 1925, shifting the film from live action to animation. Balto, a young wolf dog, lives in rural Nome with a snow goose named Boris Gusanov and two polar bears, Muck and Luck. Being half wolf, Balto is despised by dogs and humans alike. The only dog and only human in town kind to him are Jenna, a husky on whom Balto has a crush, and her owner, Rosie. He is often bullied by champion sled dog Steel, a fierce and arrogant Malamute who also likes Jenna. One evening, all the children, including Rosie, contract diphtheria, and the doctor has no antitoxin. Severe winter weather conditions prevent medicine from being brought from Juneau by air or sea, and the closest rail line ends in Nenana. A dog race is held to determine the best fit dogs for a sled dog team to get the medicine.
I'm going to take a break for a moment there. as someone who lived in Alaska when I was young, we're talking hundreds and hundreds of miles of terrain. And even if they had good weather conditions, this is 1925. Planes weren't exactly the top level of condition that they were today. So imagine, back at that era, almost 100 years ago, 70 years ago, in terms of the film, they really wouldn't have had the option of a drop ship from air to get this there. They had to get it through by boat or by trail. And the weather, that's why they went to the sled dogs. I wanted to make that clarification. They have a competition for who's going to go.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. So they have a competition. Balto enters and wins, but Steele exposes his wolf path, causing his disqualification. The team departs that night with Steele in the lead and picks up the medicine successfully, but on the way back they end up stranded at the base of an icy hill with the musher unconscious. When this news reaches Nome, Balto sets out in search of them with Boris, Muck, and Luck. On the way, they are attacked by a massive grizzly bear, but Jenna, who followed their marked trail, intervenes. The bear pursues Balto out onto a frozen lake where he falls through the ice and drowns, while Muck and Luck save Balto from a similar fate. However, Jenna has been injured and cannot continue on. Balto instructs Boris and the polar bears to take her home while he continues on his own. Jenna gives him her bandana to wear. Balto eventually finds the team, but Steele refuses his help out of callousness and attacks Balto only to fall off a cliff. Balto takes charge of the team, but Steele, refusing to concede defeat, spitefully sabotages Balto's marks and the team loses their way again. While attempting to save the medicine from falling down a cliff, Balto himself falls. Back in Nome, Jenna is explaining Balto's mission to the other dogs when Steele returns, claiming the entire team, including Balto, is dead, using Jenna's bandana as fake proof. However, Jenna sees through his lies and insists Balto will return with the medicine. Using the trick Balto showed her earlier, she places broken-colored glass bottles on the outskirts of town and shines a lantern on them to simulate the northern lights, hoping it will guide Balto home.
What do you think about this animation stills that I picked?
They're good.
Yeah, I don't remember the bear looking like this, but it's been so amazing. Okay. If I got it right. Okay.
So when Balto regains consciousness, he is ready to give up hope. But when a polar wolf appears and Balto notices the medicine crate still intact nearby, he realizes that his part wolf heritage is a strength, not a weakness. Balto rallies his confidence and drags the medicine back up to the cliff to the waiting team. Using his highly developed senses, Balto is able to filter out the fake marks Steele created. After encountering further challenges and losing only one vial, Balto and the sled team finally make it back to Nome. Steele is exposed as a liar, and the other dogs abandon him in anger and refusing his pleas to explain. Reunited with his friends, Balto earns respect from both the dogs and the humans. He visits a cured Rosie, who thanks him for saving her. Back in the present day, the woman, her granddaughter, and Blaze finally find Balto's memorial, and she explains that Alaska runs the Iditarod dog race over the same path that Balto and his team took. The woman, revealed to be an elderly Rosie, repeats the same line, "Thank you, Balto. I would have been lost without you," before walking off to join her granddaughter and Blaze. The statue of Balto stands proudly in the sunlight. It's rated G, easily a 4 stars. The more I think about it, I would probably do a 4.5. But
I'm not as big of a fan of it as you. That's why I got a 4.
Okay.
You gave it a 4. You gave it a 4.5. I gave it a 3.5. Bounces out to 4.
Yeah.
Not that I don't enjoy the film, but having lived in Alaska, some of the behaviors of the animals and stuff didn't quite ring true to me. That was the main thing for that. But I did enjoy the story. And of course, I guess the main thing is Steele is one of those type of characters that you know he's the villain, but he's not one of those kind of villains that you love to hate. Does that make sense?
I can say like for me, and I really wanted to see Steele get his comeuppance in this film.
Well, no. That you want that, but what I'm saying is, almost any good villain you want to see them get their comeuppance. But there's villains that you really love to hate. They're just so well done, and this was just kind of so petty. There wasn't enough depth to him for me, and I think that was one of the other weaknesses I had for the film. Because he's kind of like one note with his whole, he's so prideful and everything, but he'd rather let the whole thing fail and then have the kids have the kids get their treatment and survive, just so he could still be top dog or whatever. And everybody respect him when he wasn't really that respected anyway, because most dogs didn't really respect him. They were more fearful of him because he was such a bully of a character.
Yep.
So I was like, I just, a little bit one note, so to speak, with that character. Not Disney, but there's been better versions of that type of trope of a character. So go ahead.
Okay, so
but you are a huge Balto fan.
Yes. Yes. So throughout the podcast tonight, I will be showing off my fandom proudly. So first of all, of course, for those who don't know, Balto is actually available on Blu-ray. It was a Walmart exclusive, and literally the only reason I knew about it is I was actually in Walmart. I looked down at the bottom of their new releases, and I happened to see it, and I literally squealed like a schoolgirl when I saw this.
Oh dear!
Yes. But I have my Balto poster framed. I have the soundtrack, awesome soundtrack by James Horner, which I'll talk about in a second. And my friend, yes, a stuffed Balto that I've had since the movie came out in 1995. I am not too proud to admit. But so why I like this film, so this was, and I saw this film when I was still in college. Actually, the first time I saw it, I was actually working at a movie theater here in Columbia, the old Columbia Mall movie theater, which dates me. But I love it so much that when I went back to Furman for the semester, I really spent money I technically didn't have. I saw this movie so many times in the theater, but this was the last film to be produced by Steven Spielberg's Amblimation studio.
Right.
They had done American Tail, Fievel Goes West, and We're Back, A Dinosaur Story. And when Amblimation folded, Amblimation was based in the UK. So while it's an American story and has mostly American voice actors, it was actually animated in the UK by a European crew. Um, and then when Emblemation folded and Spielberg started DreamWorks, most of those animators came over.
Right.
So, but I really like the look of this film, and I don't know if it's the fact that it was a European crew animating it, but I love how, like, I'm not really sure if this is the best way to say this, but the animation to me sort of has a bit of a harder edge to it. Like it's not as smooth maybe as some other animated films are, which actually is perfect considering the film's setting.
I think I know what you're trying to get at. There's a 95. They were starting to get into the computer side of animation,
Yes.
and this is a mixed celluloid, painting and computer for some of the effects
Right.
and some of the backgrounds in the film. And I think they did the matte paintings for the backgrounds, but I think they did some uh, computer graphics for certain effects.
Yeah.
And that, I think that's what gave it a little bit different look, especially for that era.
Mm-hmm. But
Um,
but even in like the hand drawn animation itself, I think is just beautiful.
oh yeah, that's nicely done. I mean, the bear was one I couldn't remember. I kept thinking it's more than just black, isn't it? Like no, it isn't, because I kept looking for different images of the bear, and I was like, no, that's what it looks like. Okay, it's just been that long since I'd seen it. So this is one of the ones you watched right before this week, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Where does this rank?
again,
Where does this rank? Because this obviously ranks as one of your favorites overall for all films for animation. How high do you think it ranks?
number 2.
Wow. Okay. I'm not going to ask what number 1 is yet, because we might talk about that.
We're going to talk about number 1 later.
Okay.
and my number 3 pick is on here too.
Oh wow. Okay. So we really got him going here.
Yeah. So again, I love the soundtrack. James Horner did the music. It's beautiful, and like this movie contains one of my absolute favorite scenes in all of animation, and we alluded to it a while back. After Balto has fallen off the cliff with the medicine, and he gets up and he sees the white wolf, mm-hmm. and he remembers something that Boris had told him earlier. Earlier in the film, Boris says, "Let me tell you something, Balto. A dog cannot make this journey alone, but maybe a wolf can." And it's the moment when Balto finally accepts his wolf heritage and realizes that that's what's going to get him through. And the music just swells, and it makes my hair stand on end every single time I watch it.
Okay, now let me ask you this: is it the same thing when you hear it without the visual?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
Okay. So in other words, this is such a powerful film for you that just listening to the music recalls in your head. You actually see the scene in your head.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yes. And also the voice cast. The voice cast is really good, and it's Kevin Bacon, Bridget Fonda,
Mm-hmm.
Like this really is one of my favorite Kevin Bacon performances. I think he's so right for the character of Balto,
mm-hmm.
and he just like really brings a warmth. And another thing I appreciated about the voice cast and talking about Steel, in fact, is, you know, a lot of these films have celebrity voice talent,
Mm-hmm.
which, and sometimes
Well,
that,
I wouldn't call not it's not so much celebrity voice talent. Just call them experienced actors
right,
outside of voice acting.
right, and sometimes that's a good thing, and sometimes not so much. In the case of Balto, it's a very good thing, you know. But and you know, I think there's sometimes I feel like they hired a voice talent mainly for their celebrity status in the hopes that it will get people in the theater, and
Right.
and sometimes they're not necessarily the best people for the role, but then you have the, you
That
know,
depends. I mean, I know where you're coming from, but I think that has more to do with voice direction than the voice actor.
I think it's both
Yeah.
really.
I mean, you
But
have more experience with voice acting than I do. Um, if you guys don't know, John is a voice actor and an audio book narrator in one of his jobs. And but I guess what I'm saying is there a character that you like it took you out because of the voice actor here, or
not no, not here, not at
okay,
all.
right?
But I guess what I was leading up to is, you know, there's the experienced act, there's the actors who don't, aren't, genuine voice actors, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it seems like they get, all the main parts, and the genuine voice actors, the people who actually
Mm-hmm.
do voice acting for a living, end up voicing, the minor characters, or, additional crowd voices and what have
Mm-hmm.
you. And one thing I love about Balto is that one of the main characters, Steele, is voiced by Jim Cummings, who is a voice acting legend.
Right.
For those who don't know, Jim Cummings is the voice of Winnie the Pooh and Tigger, and Darkwing Duck, and really like way too many characters to name. Like seriously, go look him up on IMDb.
Yeah, he's got like
Oh, voice actors have the greatest IMDb pages ever. The list is literally a mile long.
yeah,
But so
but you don't know who they
so
are.
it's really nice hearing, a true professional voice actor get the chance to voice a main character in a film like Steele and Balto. And I think Jim Cummings does a terrific job as Steele. And it really shows his range as an actor, because you don't hear a trace of Winnie the Pooh or Tigger in Steele.
Mm-hmm.
And I just love it.
Okay, I have a question.
Yes,
Have you seen the sequels?
I have. It's been a while. Balto 2, Balto 2 Wolf Quest is okay. Balto 3 I saw once, and I don't feel the need to see again.
yeah.
And it just, it to me, it's a case of like, like you wonder, did they even watch the original film? Because
Well, for one
what,
thing, they write the characters, anything close to what was originally presented.
yeah, and it's like, and especially with Balto 3, like to me, they just completely missed the things that made the original so good for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, for one thing, they went the traditional, family film musical route, and they added songs which are none of which are memorable.
Mm-hmm.
They added a female love interest for Boris, which didn't really do anything for me.
Mm-hmm.
So, so I
The reason
haven't
I was
watched.
asking was because um, it's a completely different cast. Almost
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
nobody in this in the second film that was in the first,
right.
and that changes the whole presentation,
Mhm.
and the characters aren't the same. I mean, I don't know. Maurice LaMarche plays Balto in the second film,
Yeah,
and I don't even know who that is. You might know him because you're
he,
more the voice than I am.
he is the brain from Pinky and the Brain.
Oh, okay. All right. I mean, I recognize, David Carradine and Lacey Chabert and Mark Hamill and Peter McNichol, but it was like the lead character is like who? Yeah, but okay. And like you say, the third one is not that. It was even worse than the second. But and I just wondered how that changed your perspective on things.
Stick with the original.
Just stick with the original. Yeah, I go along with that. Okay, let's go on to the next film, and that is another one for you.
Cats Don't Dance. Directed by From 1997, directed by Mark Dindal, um, who would later go on to direct The Emperor's New Groove for Disney. Produced by Paul Gertz and David Kirshner. Screenplay by Robert Scanaway, and again, Cliff Ruby and Elena Lesser and Teresa Pattengill. Story by Rick Schneider, Mark Dindal, Brian McEntee, Robert Lentz, Kelvin Yasuda, and David Womersley. Starring Scott Bakula, Jasmine Guy, Ashley Peldon, John Rhys Davies, Kathy Najimy, George Kennedy, Don Knotts, Hal Holbrook, and Renee. And I always can never remember how to pronounce his last name.
Yeah,
Um,
I know. I can't either.
um,
Auberginois, I think, is how it's pronounced.
Abiginoy.
I believe. I don't know.
Um, and so, I'll just say here, here's a cast, of you know, known actors from outside of animation, and they really do well with their characters
But
here.
a lot of them are actors who have stage and musical
Yes,
backgrounds, so that
yeah,
so so that helps with this type of film. And one thing I do want to mention, Jasmine Guy plays the character, but she does not do the singing in this.
right. Natalie Cole does the singing for her character.
Right, which I thought was kind of a shame because Jasmine Guy is a vocalist.
Well, I heard that like Jasmine Guy was kind of a last minute replacement. Like they had somebody else, and then for reasons I don't know, that other person got replaced with Jasmine Guy, but she was not the original voice for her character.
I see. And that would make so maybe she didn't have enough time to learn the songs, and they had to have a professional singer that could just go into the studio and do it better.
Maybe
Okay. Uh, Production companies.
Turner Feature Animation and Warner Brothers Animation, distributed by Warner Brothers. Release date March 26, 1997. Runtime 1 hour 17 minutes. Again, it's another compact film, but they pack a lot into it. So, what it's about, in 1939, Danny, an optimistic cat from Kokomo, Indiana, travels to Hollywood in hopes of starting an acting career there. After meeting a new friend, Pudge, Danny is selected by agent Farley Wink to feature in a film that is in production at Mammoth Pictures called Lil Archangel, alongside Wink's secretary, a white cat named Sawyer. That's the character Jasmine Guy plays.
Right.
Upon joining fellow animals Tilly, Cranston, Francis, and TW, Danny is dismayed on learning how minor his role is and tries to weasel his way into more time in the spotlight. Danny angers Darla Dimple, popular yet spoiled child actress and star of the film, so she assigns her 36-foot-tall butler, Max, to intimidate Danny into no longer trying to enlarge his part.
Is he really 36 foot tall?
Yeah.
How in the heck would he get in any buildings? He's bigger than the building.
He made his own entrances.
Oh, okay. I have no idea because I've never seen this one.
Yeah.
Okay. That sounds interesting. He just walks through walls and stuff then?
Pretty much, yeah.
Oh, dear.
So Danny learns from the studio's mascot, Wooly the Mammoth, that human actors are normally given more important roles than animals. He longs for the spotlight and tries to make a plan that will encourage humans to provide animal actors with better scenarios, such as by assembling a massive cluster of animals and putting on a musical performance for the humans. Later, Danny is given advice by Darla on how to interest and satisfy audiences. He takes this information to heart and groups the animals for an audition on the Ark in hopes of attracting the humans' attention. However, Darla, fearing that the animals will jeopardize her spotlight, has Max help her flood the stage with 100,000 gallons of water, while L.D. Mammoth, the head of Mammoth Pictures, and Flanagan, the film's director, are giving an interview, giving the animals blamed and dismissed for the collateral damage. The animals are depressed at being barred from acting in Mammoth Pictures, especially Danny, who was convinced by Darla that she was trying to help the animals. Wooly advises Danny to return to Kokomo. Later that night, everyone is at a diner upset with Danny for ruining everything for him, while Sawyer sings a song about Danny trying to keep their dreams alive. Tilly overhears Sawyer singing and suggests Sawyer to follow Danny. Sawyer arrives to the bus stop just seconds after Danny left, finding his hat and to-do list behind.
Okay, we're going to stop for a second here. I have a couple of questions about this storyline.
Okay.
Now, you've got this ginormous bodyguard who just wrecks things everywhere he goes, walking through walls and everything. Yeah. And that's not causing collateral damage. It's going to put problems for Darla.
Well,
they weren't thinking about this, were they?
Well, basically, it's, I mean, because he's Darla's bodyguard, Darla gets away with a lot because she's the studio's number one property.
She's like Shirley Temple of the era or something.
Yes, like if Shirley Temple were evil, it would be Darla Temple.
Okay.
Yeah,
I just thinking about 100,000 gallons of water. First off, where do they get 100,000 gallons of water? But yeah, but that's that is the storyline. So I was just like, this is crazy, But okay,
Darla's type of person. She acts all sweet and innocent, but honestly, like she's the child star who has everyone in the palm of her hand, basically, and can do whatever and does do whatever she wants.
Mm-hmm. She's kind of like the Baby Doll in Batman, the animated series.
Probably.
Yeah, it's a similar type thing.
I think so.
Only, of course, Baby Doll is an actual adult, not a child star, but
Right.
Yeah, but anyway, okay.
Okay,
we've stopped at him leaving on the bus.
However, after a comment from the bus driver and seeing Pudge wander the streets, Danny stops the bus and comes up with another plan. He secretly invites Sawyer and the others to the premiere of Little Archangel. After the screening and a battle with Max that sends him flying away on a Darla Dimple balloon, Danny calls the audience's attention. Upon bringing Sawyer, Wooly, Tilly, Cranston, Pudge, Francis, and TW backstage to help Danny, the 8 animals put on a musical performance that entertains and impresses the viewers. Meanwhile, Darla tries to sabotage the show by tampering with the set and special effects equipment, but her attempts instead cause her to enhance the performance. Darla furiously yells at the animals for foiling her plan when her voice is amplified over the theater's sound system due to a boom mic she had been tangled up with, revealing the truth about the incident to the audience, including LB and Flanagan. Darla tries to hide her true colors by kissing and hugging Danny, but Pudge sends her down a trap door. The animals achieve their dreams for larger roles. Danny and Sawyer admit their feelings for each other, and Darla is demoted to a janitor.
Yeah, I guess they have to make her a janitor. I mean, she's a child actor. Why would they make her a janitor? I mean, she would just be fired, and that would be the end of her. You wouldn't see her anymore. But
This is one of those stories like just go with it.
yeah,
You know,
just go with it. All right, you give it. It's a rated G, and you gave it 4 stars.
yes. And so
I mean, I can see why you would like this. It's about the musical elements and the performances and stage and stuff. That's really up your alley. So that makes sense to me.
So I did some research, and I actually read that in the early stages of development, it was going to be a project for Michael Jackson, and for some reason, I think they said scheduling difficulties, that deal fell through.
Mm-hmm.
But so this movie was actually produced at Turner Feature Animation, which at the time was one of Ted Turner's many properties, alongside Hanna-Barbera, Cartoon Network, Atlanta Braves, and all that stuff. And of course, several times management changed at Turner Feature Animation, and as you know, when management changes and new people brought in, they feel the need to say, "Hey, I have an idea for this project." And so it was it was a struggle to keep the filmmakers' original vision, which they really did manage to do. But what killed the film's chances for box office success was in 1996 when Time Warner bought Turner, and the film was a victim of that deal because now the film landed in the lap of Warner Brothers, and so Warner Brothers did not actually produce the film; they only distributed it, and basically they couldn't have cared less about it. Like right. They did like one trailer and I think one fast food promotion, and that was it. They just dumped it in theaters, and
I've never heard of it before.
Yeah, well, you're not alone. So it was pretty much dead on arrival when it hit theaters, because I think I was one of the few people that actually did see it in a theater. But and it's one of those movies where home video saved it. But so what I like about this movie is it deals with prejudice and discrimination, because Danny arrives in Hollywood only to very quickly find out that Hollywood really doesn't care about him, and they all beyond what they need him for, which is just an extra. And
that's true of all.
Yeah. So, which is a situation that really hasn't changed. Mm-hmm. But so it deals with that, but it does it in a very non-preachy way. And what I really like about this film is it is so effortlessly entertaining. If I were to describe this film, I would describe it like this: it's Looney Tunes meets classic MGM musicals with Billy Wilder and a little Howard Hawks thrown in for good measure. So I say Looney Tunes because it has just, the animation is terrific. It's really smooth, really fluid, and very, to me, reminiscent of the classic Looney Tunes animation. from the 30s, 40s, and 40s.
And that makes sense because this takes place in the 30s.
Yes.
So, or right, 1939 to 40. Yeah. So
and
mhm.
and for classic MGM musicals, they brought in Randy Newman to do the songs, and they, of course, Randy Newman literally comes from a family of film composers. Some of whom, I think, some of his relatives were actually composing music for movies in the 30s and 40s. So he's well versed in that style, and for the filmmakers actually brought in Gene Kelly, the legendary Gene Kelly, as a consultant on how to stage the musical numbers and
choreography and stuff.
yes, and you can see Gene Kelly's influence certainly in this movie, and it's really cool. I mentioned Billy Wilder because Max the Butler is actually a parody of the Butler character in Billy Wilder's Sunset Boulevard.
Hmm.
Of course, Darla Dimple is a parody of Shirley Temple, and I mentioned Howard.
Parodies of somebody. All the humans have to be parodies of somebody. You may not, I would say that, you may not necessarily know exactly which person they're a parody of, but they're definitely a parody of somebody that you probably would know and how.
And I mentioned Howard Hawks. Howard Hawks was the director of films such as Bringing Up Baby and His Girl Friday, which he was known for doing really fast-paced comedies, like those really rapid-fire dialogue. And there's a scene in the office in the Farley Wink Animal Agency office that could have come straight out of His Girl Friday. It's just got that really snappy banter.
Okay.
But again, this movie, it's really a classic movie buff's dream because it's filled with references from movies from that area and celebrity caricatures from that area. Of course, Mammoth Pictures is a parody of MGM. LB Mammoth is Louis B. Mayer, and so it's one of those films that you don't have to get the references to enjoy it, but if you do get the references, it just makes you enjoy it even more.
Right. It's additional wink, wink, nudge, nudge information.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and read on to the next one while you get your poster for it. And that is The Iron Giant from 1999, directed by Brad Bird, produced by Allison Abate and Des McAnuff, screenplay by Tim McCandless and Brad Bird, story by Brad Bird, based on the Iron Man novel by Ted Hughes, starring Jennifer Aniston, Harry Connick Jr., Vin Diesel, James Gammon, Cloris Leachman, John Mahoney, Eli Marienthal, Christy McDowell, and M. Emmett Walsh. Production company was Warner Brothers Featured Animation and distributed by Warner Brothers Pictures. This is before, I guess, since it was Warner Brothers Featured Animation, this was before Brad went over to DreamWorks. But August 6, 1999.
Yes.
And August 6, 1999, released in the U.S. with a running time of 1 hour and 27 minutes. And this is John's actual poster from the same image that you just saw. He's got the big thing there.
Yeah.
It's one of his favorite movies.
Yeah, this is my number 3.
This is the number 3. Okay.
And Balto's the number 2.
All right. So let's go ahead and talk about it. What it's about. During the Cold War, shortly after the Soviet Union launched Sputnik 1 in October 1957, an object from space crashes in the ocean just off the coast of Maine and then enters the forest near the town of Rockwell. The following night, 9-year-old Hogarth Hughes investigates and finds the object which happens to be a 50-foot tall alien robot attempting to eat the transmission lines of an electrical substation. Hogarth eventually befriends the giant, finding him docile and curious. When he eats railroad tracks, he, meaning the giant, eats railroad tracks in the path of an oncoming train, the train collides with him and derails. Hogarth leads the giant away from the area, discovering that he can self-repair. While there, Hogarth shows the giant comic books chronicling the adventures of Superman. The incidents of both the people seeing the crash but not knowing what was there, and then the electrical substation and the train collision lead to a xenophobic U.S. government agent named Kent Mansley to Rockwell. He suspects Hogarth's involvement after talking with him and his widowed mother, Annie. Hogarth's father was a U.S. Air Force pilot who died during the Korean War, and rents a room in their house to keep an eye on them. Hogarth evades Mansley and leads the giant to a junkyard, which is the scene you saw, owned by beatnik artist Dean McCoppin, who reluctantly agrees to keep the giant. Hogarth enjoys his time with the giant, but is compelled to explain death to the giant after he witnesses hunters killing a deer. That night, Hogarth is interrogated by Mansley when he discovers evidence of the giant after finding a photo of him next to Hogarth, and brings a U.S. Army contingent led by General Shannon Rogard to the scrapyard to prove the giant's existence. But Dean, having been warned by Hogarth earlier, tricks them by pretending that the giant is actually one of his art pieces. And this art piece. It's just got the giant just sitting there in this weird thing, adding, construction signs and stop signs and stuff over. It actually looks kind of neat, that scene. Upset by the false alarm, Rogard prepares to leave with his forces after berating Mansley for his actions. Hogarth then continues to have fun with the giant by playing with the toy gun, but this inadvertently activates the giant's defensive mechanisms. Dean yells at him for nearly killing Hogarth, and the saddened giant runs away with Hogarth giving chase. Dean quickly realizes the giant was only acting in self-defense and catches up to Hogarth as they follow the giant. Now, as the giant is fleeing this scene, he sees two boys falling from a roof, and so when he sees them, he arrives and he saves the two boys, winning over the townspeople. Mansley spots the giant in the town while leaving Rockwell, and then stops the army, sending them to attack the giant after he's picked up Hogarth, forcing the two to flee together. They initially evade the army by using the giant's flight system, but then the giant is shot down and he crashes to the ground. Hogarth is knocked unconscious, but the giant, thinking that Hogarth is dead because he can't revive him, completely gives into his defensive mechanism in a fit of rage and grief, and then attacks the military in retaliation, transforming into a war machine and making its way back to Rockwell. Mansley convinces Rogard to prepare a nuclear missile launch from the USS Nautilus, as conventional weapons have proven to be ineffective against the Iron Giant. And Hogarth awakens and returns in time to calm the giant down, while Dean tries to clarify the situation with Rogard. The general is ready to stand down when Mansley impulsively orders the missile launch on his own, causing the missile to head towards Rockwell, where it will destroy the town and its population upon impact. And really not just the town of Rockwell, but this is a nuclear missile. You guys can imagine the damage that's going to happen if this thing hits. Mansley attempts to escape, but the giant stops him, and Rogard has him arrested. In order to save the town, the giant bids farewell to Hogarth and flies off to intercept the missile. As he soars directly into the path of the missile, the giant remembers Hogarth's words, "You are who you choose to be." And he smiles contentedly as he says, "Superman." And he collides with the weapon. The missile explodes in the atmosphere, saving everyone, but seemingly at the cost of the giant himself. There's nothing left of him, or that they can't find much of him anyway. This leaves Hogarth devastated. Months later, a memorial of the giant stands in Rockwell. Dean and Annie begin a relationship, and Hogarth is given a package from Rogard containing a screw from the giant, which is the only remnant that was found. However, that night, Hogarth finds the screw trying to move on its own, and then remembering that the giant had an ability to self-repair, he happily allows the screw to leave. The screw joins many other parts as they converge on the giant's head in the Glacier in Iceland, and the giant smiles as he begins reassembling himself, which means we should have an Iron Giant too, and I don't know where it's at. Rated PG, rating 4.5 stars. Is that fair?
Oh yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I wanted to kind of give it a 5, but I was like, I don't know, 4.5, I guess. Yeah. Whoops, there we go. Back up. Really do enjoy that film. I don't know. I mean, since Warner Brothers owns Superman, I guess they would let him use Superman. You know, I was always kind of wondering why that he was allowed to use that. I mean, Superman doesn't appear in the book other than in the comic reference there, but it was just, I was kind of wondering, legal wise, how they got away with it. But I guess it's Warner Brothers owns it. For some reason, I thought this was a DreamWorks movie.
Nope. Yeah. No, it was Warner Brothers, and actually, like I said in Cats Don't Dance, where about Turner Feature Animation, Brad Bird was also at developing something at Turner Feature Animation, and then when the merger happened, Warner Brothers said, we don't want to do what you were working on, but here's some things we have, look over them and see if there's anything you might like to do. And one of those items was Ted Hughes' book, The Iron Man, and he read it, and he was intrigued by it, but he wanted to do his own thing with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of the reason he wanted to do it was if you watch the credits all the way through, at the very end, it says for Susan. Susan was Brad Bird's sister, who was shot by her husband. So
wow.
So for him, having a family member who died by gun violence was a very personal thing, and I think that's what really attracted him to this project. And his pitch to the Warner executives was, what if a gun had a soul and decided it didn't want to be a gun? And unfortunately, just like they had done with Cats Don't Dance, they did not promote this film well at all.
It didn't even make it back its budget.
Nope.
And
for one thing, they had another film in development called Quest for Camelot that they were pretty much placing their bets on. Mm-hmm. Like they were expecting that movie to be a big hit, and it wasn't.
Oh no, definitely not.
And so, of course, since that film wasn't a hit, well, then they, of course, slashed the budget on the Iron Giant. Mm-hmm. The good thing is they pretty much left the filmmakers alone. So mm-hmm. there wasn't much in the way of studio interference in that regard. But like Warner Brothers was so, they just really dragged their feet. They wouldn't decide on a release date until really late in the game, and it was 4 months before the film premiered before they finally said, oh hey, we should kind of promote this film. And of course by that time it was too late to do any fast food or toy tie-in promotions, because you need to give the toy manufacturers time, and they didn't. And so much like Cats Don't Dance, this film was dumped into theaters. I'll say
It did make a huge cult comeback
yeah,
in the video scene, though.
But one of the special features on the signature edition Blu-ray, which if you don't have this, get it. It's awesome. But one of the special features, they call it the Giant Stream, and it's a really, really candid behind the scenes documentary of just what went wrong with Warner Brothers. And Brad Bird recalls the opening day when he went to see the film at a theater. And it's like a director's worst nightmare come true, because they'd gotten a great review in like the LA Times. So, he was all excited. He drives to Century City at the theater. Next to the movie theater is a Johnny Rockets restaurant, which they were supposed to have a promotional tie-in going on, and posters on the front of the restaurant. Looks over, nothing. He says, okay, shake it off. He gets up to the ticket window, and it's one of those 10 screen theaters. Every movie has nice, professionally made laminated signs telling you the times. He looks at the Iron Giant, and it is a piece of notebook paper taped on the wall. And he gets inside. He doesn't see any posters, like nothing. He gets this was a multi-level theater. He gets to the top of the escalator. It's the furthest theater in the back, where and he finally sees a standee in a position where nobody would see it, and one of the legs has been torn off.
Of course.
And it's like, like just hearing him tell it,
he's like, why isn't he not crying as you watch this on the video? Right?
Yeah.
yeah, I can believe. But like I said, this is at least it found a cult following afterwards.
Yes.
And much deserved. And I guess that kind of explains why we didn't get an Iron Giant 2, is because it did do poorly in the box office. But I wish that I wish the companies would realize that it's not the film when they do it to themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, but oh well. Okay, our next one.
Well, I gotta say, and again,
okay,
a terrific music score by Michael Kamen. Terrific voice work in this one. It's one of my favorite Vin Diesel performances, and even though the Giant's voice is electronically enhanced, especially at the beginning, you still need an actor to deliver the humanity beneath all that, and Vin Diesel really does. And I have to say, and again, this is one of the earlier features to combine.
But go ahead. Go ahead.
This is one of the earlier features to combine 2D and 3D animation, because the Giant, and it is, I especially with computer software at the time, I think they did a remarkable job.
Yeah. I didn't care for some of the character designs on the humans. Mostly Hogarth. You'll notice that I had almost everything was a shot of the Giant.
Yeah.
And that's why. The story is great, and all the characters work for what they are. But when I was looking at them as stills, it was like, I don't like that design. It was just weird. Hogarth looks like a human version of Fievel to me.
I hadn't thought about that.
From Five Wolves Goes West. Just the way the cheekbones and he's kind of got that buck tooth.
Yeah.
And that's what it reminded me of. And I was just like, this is kind of weird, It has been a while since I've watched it, so I was looking just at stills, and that makes a difference too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I didn't add him in. But it was like, talk about a character that you love to hate would be this xenophobic agent Mansley.
Kent Mansley. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it's not that he's cool or suave or anything. It's just that you just really, it's not even that you want to see him get his comeuppance. You just want him. You almost wanted to just get squashed for what he does, the things he does. Yeah. Okay. Let's go on to the next one.
And one more thing, I promise. So this movie was rated PG, and today, what passes for family entertainment a lot of the time, it's rated PG because of rude humor or sexual innuendo and stuff like that, and like it's just a lot of it's just crass today, like really needlessly so.
Mm-hmm.
But this movie, I feel like, really earns its PG rating. And I mean, yes, there's some minor use of language, like Dean McCoppin says hell a couple of times. Like, okay, technically I could have done without that, but what I really like about this film is that
that was better than some of the other words they could have used.
But it's like it really treats the audience with respect.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and it, I like that it doesn't portray like in these 50s type of of monster movies, the military would just be portrayed dumber than anything, and the military is actually portrayed as being intelligent, and
sympathetic. They're not warmongers. Gotcha.
Right. But I like that the movie doesn't spoon feed you everything. Like you figure out what you need to know as the story goes on. You see that Annie's a single mom. You don't, like, the dad's never mentioned, but there's a shot like after Kent Mansley and Hogarth have their stare down at night, and they both fall asleep, and you see a shot of a picture of his dad on Hogarth's dresser, and it's like, okay, and you kind of get that his dad's missed, but I like that it doesn't feel the need to spoon feed you every single bit of information.
Okay. All right, let's move on.
Okay.
Kubo and the Two Strings from 2016. Is this your number one?
No.
Okay. Well, I just want
I do like it very much.
Directed by Travis Knight, produced by Arian Suttner and Travis Knight, screenplay by Mark Hames and Chris Butler, story by Shannon Tyndall and Mark Hames, starring Charlize Theron, Art Parkinson, Ralph Fiennes, Rooney Mara, George Takei, and Matthew McConaughey. Production company Leica, distributed by Focus Features, released August 19th, 2016, runtime 1 hour and 42 minutes, and both of us actually went to see this together at the theater when it first came out. And we both just adored it. What it's about. In feudal Japan, a 12-year-old boy with an eye patch named Kubo tends to his ill mother, Sariatu, in a mountain cave near a village. He earns their living by magically manipulating origami with music from his shavassin for the village folk, telling a tale of his missing father Hanzo, a samurai warrior. However, Kubo is never able to finish the story as he does not know what happened to Hanzo, and Sariatu cannot recall the end due to her deteriorating mental state. Suryatu warns him not to stay out after dark, as her sisters, Karasu and Washi, and his grandfather, the Moon King, who took his eye when he was a baby, will find him and take his remaining eye. One day, Kubo learns of the village's bone festival, allowing them to speak to the deceased loved ones. Kubo attends, but is angry that Hanzo does not appear from his lantern and forgets to return home before sunset. Karasu and Washi will quickly find him and attack, but Suryatu suddenly appears and uses her own magic to send Kubo far away, telling him to find his father's armor. As you can see, this is more of a 3D CGI animated film. Kubo wakes up in a distant land to find Monkey, his wooden snow monkey charm, has come alive. Monkey tells him that Suryatu is gone and the village destroyed. With the help of little Hanzo, an origami figure based on Kubo's father, they set out to find the armor. Along the way, they meet Beetle, an amnesiac samurai who was cursed to take the form of a stag beetle human hybrid, but believes himself to have been Hanzo's apprentice. Kubo, Monkey, and Beetle reclaim the Sword Unbreakable from a cave guarded by a giant skeleton. They cross the long lake in a leaf boat to locate the breastplate impenetrable deep underwater. Kubo and Beetle swim down to retrieve it and encounter a sea monster, the Garden of Eyes, who first uses its many eyes to entrance its victims by showing them visions of secrets and then eats them. And whoops, something's missing here. I don't understand. Okay. Hold on a second. I'm going to stop the video for, not the video, but the sharing for a minute. I want to check something here. That didn't make sense. Whoops. Where did it go? Okay. Now I know what happened. All righty. Let's share again. There we go. Kubo is caught in the creature's sight, but while entranced, comes to realize that Monkey is the reincarnated spirit of his mother. Beetle rescues the unconscious Kubo and obtains the breastplate, but upon returning to the boat, they find that Monkey has been badly wounded fighting and defeating Karasu. They go to shore to recover, when Monkey explains that she and her sisters were ordered by the Moon King to kill Hanzo, but instead she fell in love with him, and the Moon King thus branded her an enemy. That night, Kubo dreams of meeting Raiden, a blind elderly man, who points him towards the helmet invulnerable in Hanzo's abandoned fortress. They travel there the next day, but realize too late that it's a trap set by the Moon King and Washi. Washi reveals that the beetle is Hanzo, whom they curse for taking Suryatu away from them, and kills Hanzo. Suryatu sacrifices herself, buying Kubo the time to use his shamisen to defeat Washi, breaking 2 of the 3 strings that he has on his instrument, which is the shamisen. It's like a little, I don't know, it's a string instrument anyway. Little Hanzo provides insight to Kubo that the helmet is actually the bell at the village, and Kubo breaks the last string to quickly travel there. At the village, Kubo meets Raiden, who is revealed as the Moon King. He offers to take Kubo's other eye and make him immortal, but Kubo refuses. Thus, Raiden transforms into a giant Dunkleostos, I can't even pronounce that one, Dunkleostos-like dragon, the Moon Beast, and pursues Kubo and the remaining villagers into its cemetery. When Hanzo's armor proves ineffective, Kubo removes it and restrings his shamisen using his mother's hair, his father's bowstring, and his own hair. With the instrument, he summons the spirits of the villagers' loved ones, who show Raiden that the memories are the strongest magic of all and can never be destroyed. Kubo and the spirits' magic then protect themselves and the villagers from Raiden, stripping him of his powers and leaving him as a mortal human without any memories whatsoever. Spurred on by Kubo's stories, the villagers take compassion and tell Raiden that he was once a man of many positive traits, accepting him into the village. Kubo is able to speak to his parents' ghosts during the subsequent bond ceremony, and they watch the deceased villagers' lanterns transform into golden herons and fly to the spirit world as the film concludes. Rated PG. I gave it 5 stars. What do you give it?
I gave it a 4.5.
Okay.
Really, because I'm reserving my 5-star rating for another film we're going to talk about in a little bit.
You're number one.
Yeah.
Okay. I just really enjoyed this film when we saw it in the theater, and I don't know, what was it, 3 or 4 days? We just kept talking about it.
Yep.
In a row, because there was just so much depth of characterization and design work going on for each character. It was, I won't call it a simplistic story, but a straightforward story.
Mm-hmm.
There was nothing that was going to really throw you off in terms of the plot. They didn't give you any. I guess you could say they gave a few red herrings, but they were easily figured out beforehand. You should know what you were getting as you watch it. And it's a good story for both learning self-reliance and self-awareness and self-knowledge, but it's also a good story about coping with the loss of loved ones, even when you don't know that they're there for you.
Yeah.
Because Kubo is sitting here thinking his dad's dead. Turns out it's Beetle. And then he thinks his mother's dead. Then he realizes his mother's actually Monkey. And, it kind of gives a nice metaphor that, the memories of our loved ones are still with us after they're gone physically. So I like that about the film as well.
Yeah. And what I like about it is it's a little bit about, for me, the power of art, because if you think about it, I mean, Kubo is an artist. I mean, he's practically, I mean, he's an animator in a sense, and he's a musician. And that helps him get through life too.
Well, he's not just an animator; he's a storyteller too.
Yes, exactly. And so this was the 4th film from Leica Studios. They're the studio that did Coraline, Paranorman, which we've talked about on this show earlier. And they did The Box Trolls, then Kubo, and then their latest film is The Missing Link. But I really think Kubo so far is their best film to date, and
I agree with that.
And you said CG. It's actually mainly a stop motion film with.
Okay, that's true. You're right. I always make that mistake.
Yeah,
you're right. You should have corrected me.
But which to me makes it all the more astonishing because
it's so well matted and so well laid out.
And I mean, and of course, if you know anything, like stop motion films take forever to make. I mean, stop motion films are truly labors of love because they take so much time and energy to make, and you can just tell from this film that they put everything they had into it.
Yeah. See, I knew that, but it's been a while since I watched it, and I forgot. And I wish you corrected me sooner. I feel like an idiot now. Oh, well. Okay. Our next film is The Last Unicorn from 1982. Directed by Arthur Rankin Jr. and Jules Bass. Produced by Arthur Rankin Jr., Jules Bass, and Masaki Izuka. Screenplay by Peter A. Spiegel. Based on The Last Unicorn novel by Peter S. Spiegel. Starring Alan Arkin, Jeff Bridges, Mia Farrow, Tammy Grimes, Robert Klein, Angela Lansbury, Christopher Lee, Keenan Wynn, Paul Frees, and Renee Auberjonois.
Again.
Yes. Production companies.
I'm going to let you talk. I'll be right back.
Yeah, no problem. Production companies: Rankin Bass Productions, Topcraft, which would later become Studio Ghibli, and ITC Films. Distributed by Jensen Farley Pictures, also known as Sun Classic Pictures. Release date November 19th, 1982. Runtime of 1 hour and 24 minutes. I picked this one to show because I'm a big fan of the whole Jules, Rankin Bass films. They're the one. This is the same people that did the animated Hobbit and animated Lord of the Rings stuff in the 70s. And the thing is, if we show that as best, it really doesn't. It falls so flat now compared to the Peter Jackson live action that I felt I had to go with something else from the same group, and that's part of the reason why I like this. I add this one because I like this one as well. What it's about: a unicorn learned from two hunters and a butterfly that she is the last of her kind, since a malevolent entity called the Red Bull has herded unicorns to the ends of the earth. I wonder what they put in Red Bull drinks. The unicorn journeys to find them. But the unicorn is captured by the witch Mommy Fortune, that you can see in the bottom right, and displayed in her midnight carnival. Most of the attractions are just normal animals, enhanced by allusions to appear as mythical beasts. Fortuna uses a spell to create another horn on the unicorn's head, as carnival visitors cannot see her real form. Fortuna keeps the immortal harpy Celiano captive as well, deeming the risk secondary to the deed's prestige. In other words, having having that person enslaved gives her show more prestige. The unicorn is befriended by Schmendrick, an incompetent wizard in the service of Mommy Fortuna. With the help of Schmendrick, the unicorn escapes and in the process frees Solana, who kills Fortuna. The unicorn and Schmendrick gain a second traveling companion with Molly Grew, a careworn lover of Captain Cully, pardon me. When the unicorn nears the seaside castle of Haggard, keeper of the Red Bull, she encounters the beast, and that is the Red Bull. And he's not really a bull, he's actually a monstrous fire elemental that is in the shape of a bull. Before she can be captured, however, Schmendrick uses his unpredictable magic and transforms her into a woman. The Red Bull becomes uninterested in her and departs, but the unicorn is shocked by the sensation of mortality. Schmendrick promises to return her to her normal self after the quest is complete. Schmendrick, Molly Grew, and the now human unicorn proceed on to the castle. Haggard is at first unwelcoming. Schmendrick introduces the unicorn as Lady Alethea and requests that they become members of Haggard's court, only to be told that the only occupants of the castle are Haggard himself, his adopted son Prince Lear, and 4 ancient men-at-arms. Haggard consents to lodge the trio, replacing his more competent wizard Marbreck with Schmendrick and Molly to work. Oops, something's missing here again. I hate this when I do this. Just give me a second. I'll see why it's out of order again. Or maybe it did. Nope, that's not it. It might have got messed up. Anyway, Molly is working as a kitchen maid and servant. And that, I think what happened was I just lost space and didn't put it in the next page. But anyway, Amalthea and Prince Lear are having emotions and scenes for interest for one another. And Maverick leaves the castle, but he knows something's up and he doesn't like what's going on. He knows that there's something different about Amalthea. And ultimately, he recognizes her for what she truly is and jeers that allowing her into the castle, Haggard will have invited his own doom. Due to her new human emotions, Amalthea begins forgetting her true self and falls in love with Prince Lear. and considers abandoning her quest in favor of mortal love. Haggard confronts Amalthea, hinting at the location of the unicorns, yet from the waning magic in her eyes, he has doubts regarding his suspicions that she is more than she seems. In the meantime, Molly finally learns the location of the Red Bull's lair from the castle's cat. Molly, Schmendrick, and Amalthea are joined by Lear as they enter the bull's den and are trapped there by Haggard. Schmendrick explains to Lear what they're looking for and reveals Amalthea's true identity. Lear declares that he loves her anyway. This makes Amalthea want to abandon the quest and marry Lear, but Lear dissuades her. The Red Bull appears, no longer deceived by Amalthea's human form, and chases after her. And he drives her towards the ocean, just as he has driven all the other unicorns into the ocean to kill them. Lear tries defending her, but gets killed by the bull. Enraged, the unicorn turns on the bull and forces the bull into the sea. Carried on the incoming tides, the other unicorns emerge from the ocean. And with their release, Haggard's castle collapses into the sea, and Haggard, watching from above in the battlements, falls to his death. On the beach, the unicorn magically revives Lear before she leaves him. Schmendrick assures Lear that he gained much by winning the love of a unicorn, even if he's now alone. The unicorn later says goodbye to Schmendrick, who laments that he wronged her by burdening her with regret at the taint of mortality, which could make her unable to properly rejoin her kind. She disagrees about this, however, because the importance of his actions helped her restore unicorns to the world as a whole and made her experience love. Schmendrick and Molly watch the unicorn depart for her home. And I love the statement in this. I'm a little afraid to go home. I've been mortal, and some part of me is mortal yet. I am no longer like the others, for no unicorn is ever born who could regret, but now I do. I regret. I am sorry. I've done you evil, and I cannot undo it. No, unicorns are in the world again. No sorrow will live in me as long as that joy, save one. And I thank you for that part too. And I gave it 5 stars, rated G. Again, I'm a big fan of the Studio Ghibli. This was actually Topcraft at that time, but it became Studio Ghibli after Topcraft closed up. They split into 2 parts. Studio Ghibli, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in another film here. But you've seen the film, but it's been a long time.
Yes, I have.
And
I saw it. I saw it in the theater.
Mm-hmm.
When it came out.
So you were like 10, 9,
7.
or 10? Yeah,
7.
7. Oh wow! Did it keep your mom? Did it keep you engaged at 7? Because I mean,
it did. And it was one of those films. Because I mean, I've been a Disney fan all my life, and so I grew up watching Disney stuff. And this was one of the films where it first really felt to me like this wasn't a Disney film.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, the look of it, and I didn't know what anime was back then.
Mm-hmm.
But it had and still has a very unique look to it that
you left the room. This is, like I said, this is the same people who did The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings series. So it's not so much it was different. I mean, we saw this stuff regularly throughout that era.
Well, actually, I didn't see The Hobbit or The Lord of the Rings until after this movie.
Okay.
So
that was your first exposure to that. Okay.
It really was.
Cool. Very cool.
But yeah, I remember liking it. Of course, I remember the 2 songs that were in the film. By the group America, and an interesting little factoid: the man who wrote the songs and the score for the film, Jimmy Webb, was a well-known songwriter who had written songs such as "By the Time I Get to Phoenix" and "Wichita Lineman" for Glenn Campbell.
Right. So yeah, that it's kind of interesting because it has this kind of a folksy type stuff that was going on, which they did also in the Hobbit, getting Peter from Peter, Paul, and Mary to do some of their singing and stuff like that. But very folk, but yet fantasy, yet modern.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting. I don't know if there's a soundtrack to that film or not, but if you can get on a CD or not. But
if there isn't, there should be.
Yeah. Okay. Our next one is Spirit, Stallion of Cimarron, and I'll let you go ahead and read it.
Okay. The Spirit, Stallion of the Cimarron, 2002, directed by Kelly Asbury and Lorna Cook, produced by Morel Soria, Jeffrey Katzenberg, screenplay by John Fusco, starring Matt Damon, James Cromwell, Daniel Studi, and Chopper Burnett. Production company DreamWorks Animation, distributed by DreamWorks Pictures. Release date May 24th, 2002. Running time 1 hour 24 minutes. So, what it's about: in the 19th century American West, a young Tiger Mustang colt, Spirit, is born to a herd of wild horses. Spirit soon grows into a stallion and assumes the role of leader of the herd, whose duty it is to keep the herd safe. Spirit is a courageous leader, but has great curiosity. One night, upon spotting a strange light near his herd, the stallion decides to investigate the location, where he finds restrained, docile horses and their human wranglers sleeping around a campfire. They wake up and, seeing him as a magnificent specimen, chase and capture him, taking him to a U.S. cavalry post. At this time, the U.S. Army is fighting the Indian Wars and taking over the soon-to-be western United States. Frightened and confused, Spirit finds himself enslaved among other horses. Then he encounters the Colonel, who decides to have the Mustang tamed, refusing to believe the idea of Spirit being too stubborn, but Spirit manages to fight off all attempts to tame him. To weaken Spirit, the Colonel orders him tied to a post for 3 days with no food or water. Meanwhile, a Lakota Native American named Little Creek is also brought into the fort and held captive. Spirit is later supposedly broken in by the Colonel, who speaks his idea of how any wild horse can be tamed. However, Spirit gets a second wind and finally throws him off. Frustrated, the Colonel attempts to shoot him before Little Creek, who frees himself from his bounds with a knife, saves Spirit from being shot as they, along with the rest of the horses, escape from the post. Little Creek's mare, Rain, meets them along with other natives who capture Spirit again. After returning to the Lakota village, Little Creek tries to tame Spirit with kindness, but Spirit refuses to be ridden. Little Creek ties Spirit and Rain together, hoping she will teach him a thing or two. When Spirit tries to leave, she insists on staying, then shows him her world. Spirit begins to warm up to Little Creek and falls in love with Rain. At the end of their time together, Little Creek tries again to ride him, but Spirit is still unwilling. Little Creek then decides that Spirit will never be tamed and frees him. As Spirit asks Rain to come with him to his herd, a cavalry regiment led by the Colonel attacks the village and Rain runs off to find Little Creek. During the vicious battle, the Colonel tries to shoot Little Creek, but Spirit runs into the Colonel and his horse, deflecting the shot and saving Little Creek's life. However, Rain is shot by the Colonel, knocking her into the river. Spirit dives into the river to try to rescue Rain, but is unsuccessful, and they both plummet over a waterfall. Spirit finds Rain dying from her injuries and stays by her side until the army captures him. Watching Spirit being pulled away, Little Creek arrives, vowing to free him to satisfy his life debt, and follows the men after tending to Rain. Spirit is loaded onto a train and taken to a work site on the Transcontinental Railroad, where he is put to work pulling a steam locomotive. Realizing that the track will infringe on his homeland, Spirit breaks free from the sledge and breaks the chains holding the other horses. They escape, and the locomotive falls off its wooden sledge and rolls down the hill, chasing Spirit back to the worksite. The locomotive demolishes two wooden storage sheds and then slams into another locomotive, causing a massive explosion that sets the forest ablaze. Spirit attempts to escape the fire but is trapped when the chain around his neck snags on a fallen tree. Um, Little Creek appears in time and saves Spirit, and together they jump into a river to escape the flames. The next morning, the colonel and his men find Spirit in Little Creek. Spirit allows Little Creek to ride him, and a chase ensues through the Grand Canyon. Eventually, they are trapped by a gorge. Little Creek gives up, but Spirit manages to successfully leap across the canyon. Spirit's move amazes the colonel. He humbly accepts defeat, stops his men from shooting the two, and allows Spirit and Little Creek to leave. Spirit returns to the rebuilt Lakota village with Little Creek and finds Rain nursed back to health. Little Creek decides to name Spirit the spirit who could not be broken and sets him and Rain free. After saying goodbye to Little Creek, the two horses return to Spirit's homeland and eventually find Spirit's herd, where he joyfully reunites with his mother. The eagle from the beginning that had been seen at various points throughout the story reappears and flies upwards into horse-shaped clouds. Rated G, I give this a 4.5 stars. I truly think this is one of DreamWorks Animation's absolute best movies.
Mm-hmm. I haven't seen it, so I don't have an opinion on it. The still shots look nice. You know what I found of them.
Mm-hmm.
I might question why Rain survived if she was shot and then fell down a waterfall, but other than that, you know, that's why you give it a half a star off, right?
Well, no, like I said, I'm reserving my 5-star rating for later. But what I really like about this is, of course, it's beautifully animated. Those stills do not lie, believe me. But what I liked is that they really went for a degree of realism,
Okay.
meaning that I mean, yes, they give the horses various human expressions that of course wouldn't normally have, but
Yeah, okay, I see what you're saying. They don't do anthropomorphic talking.
no, none of the animals in this film talk at all, and so they are treated like real horses, real eagles. Everything, every animal in the film is treated like a real animal. They do not talk. Matt Damon is the voice of Spirit in that he narrates Spirit's thoughts in first person narration.
Uh-huh.
And musically, Bryan Adams, who wrote the songs for the film, and again, none of the characters sing in the film either. Bryan Adams is heard on the. Bryan Adams is kind of Spirit's musical voice.
Uh-huh.
So both Matt Damon's narration and Bryan Adams' songs are reflecting Spirit's thought.
Internal.
Yes.
Internal, yeah.
Um, but again, it's just stunningly beautiful animation. Treated with a degree of realism that you don't normally see in animation. And of course, great Bryan Adams songs. Hans Zimmer did the score, um, and it's it's kind of unusual because normally with a score for a more Western themed film, you would expect to hear twangy guitars or lots of fiddle or stuff like that, and you don't. It's really an a orchestral score with some synthesizer elements thrown in, but it really does capture the spirit of the characters, and it really does capture the vastness of the wide open spaces.
Mhm.
Very
I think
beautiful.
it's more traditional to, like you said, more of an orchestral sound, but more like traditional Western, old school Westerns.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I actually read that originally Garth Brooks was supposed to do the songs, and no disrespect to Garth Brooks, but I'm glad that ended up not happening.
No, he's got too much twang in his voice.
Yes. And
It wouldn't work with Matt Damon.
no.
No.
Because and the reason Brian Adams works is so well is because Spirit is a free soul, and he's got some rebelliousness in him, and Brian Adams' voice has that same kind of quality to it, so it works really well. Again, it's my favorite DreamWorks animation movie, and I really do think it's one of their best.
Okay. Now I think we got to your number one.
Yes.
You go ahead and read it.
Okay.
Or do you want me to read it while you get the poster and stuff?
Yeah, you read it. I'll prepare to show my fandom again.
Okay. Secret of NIMH from 1982, directed Don Bluth, writers Robert C. Bryan for the novel. Story adaptation by Don Bluth, John Pomeroy, Gary Goldman, Will Finn, and uncredited Ken Anderson. Produced by Don Bluth and Gary Goldman. I don't know why it says different things there, but Bluth, Goldman, and Pomeroy were producers, and Rich Irvine and James L. Stewart were the executive producers. There you go. Starring Derek Jacobi, Elizabeth Hartman, Arthur Mallet, Dom DeLuise, Hermione Baddeley. Hey, there's a Hermione before Hermione Granger.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, this had Shannon Doherty as a young little one. Had Will Wheaton.
And in fact, it was their debut film.
Yes. Jody Hicks, Ian Freed, John Carradine, Peter Strauss, Paul Shinar, Tom Hatton, Lucille Bliss, Aldo Ray, Norbert Auerbach, Dick Kleiner, Charles Champlin, Edie McClurg, and Joshua Lawrence. Huge cast.
Yeah, and two fun little factoids. If you go back to the cast list.
Okay, just give me a second. If I can get it there, this thing's being fussy. Where'd it go? There we go.
Yeah. Well, actually, three little factoids. Dom DeLuise voices Jeremy the Crow, and this was, in fact, his very first voiceover role.
Okay.
Which, of course, he would go on to do many others. Norbert Auerbach was, this movie was distributed by United Artists, and Norbert Auerbach was the chairman of United Artists at the time. And then Charles Champlin was a movie critic. I don't remember what paper he wrote for. Unfortunately, because he was involved with this film, he couldn't review the film for his newspaper because it would have been a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Okay, just a second. I want to make sure I got the right page. Here we go. Yeah, it went too far. It went one past where it was supposed to. That's what happened. The production companies are United Artists, as John mentioned, as well as Aurora Productions and Don Bluth Productions. Distributed by MGA, United Artists Entertainment Company. Released July 2nd, 1982, with a running time of an hour and 22 minutes. What's about? Mrs. Brisby, a widowed field mouse, lives in a cinder block with her children in a field in a Fitzgibbons farm. She prepares to move her family out of the field as plowing time approaches, but her son Timothy has fallen ill. She visits Mr. Ages, a friend of her late husband Jonathan, who diagnoses the illness as pneumonia, provides Mrs. Brisby with medicine, and warns her that Timothy must stay inside for at least 3 weeks or he will die. On her way home, Mrs. Brisby encounters Jeremy, a clumsy but friendly crow. They both nearly escape the Fitzgibbons cat, Dragon, and that is one hell of a cat, too. Good name for that cat. There he is. And there's two of them trying to escape that little sucker. The next day, Mrs. Brisby discovers that Farmer Fitzgibbon has started plowing early. Although her neighbor Auntie Shrew helps her disable his tractor, Mrs. Brisby knows she must devise another plan. Jeremy takes her to meet the Great Owl, who tells her to visit a group of rats that live beneath a rose bush on the farm and ask for Nicodemus, their wise and mystical leader. Mrs. Brisby enters the rose bush and encounters an aggressive guard rat named Brutus, who chases her off. But she's led back in by Mr. Ages and is amazed to see the rat's use of electricity and other technology. She meets Justin, the friendly captain of the guard, Jenner, a ruthless, power-hungry rat opposed to Nicodemus, and finally Nicodemus himself. From Nicodemus, she learns that many years ago her husband, along with the rats and Mr. Ages, were part of a series of experiments at the National Institute of Mental Health, or NIM for short. And we see Mrs. Brisby with Nicodemus here on the scene. The experiments boosted their intelligence, enabling them to escape, as well as extending their lifespans and slowing their aging process. However, they are unable to live only as rats and need human technology to survive, which they have accomplished only by stealing. The rats have concocted the plan, which is to leave the farm and live independently in Thorn Valley. Nicodemus gives Mrs. Brisby an amulet and tells her it will awaken when the wearer is courageous. Because of the rat's relationship with Jonathan, they agree to help Mrs. Brisby move her home. First, though, they need to drug Dragon to sleep so that they can complete the move safely. Only Mrs. Brisby can do this, as the rats are too big to fit through the hole leading into the house. Jonathan was killed by Dragon in the previous attempt, while Mr. Ages broke his leg in another attempt. That night, she manages to get the drug into the cat's dish, but she gets captured by the Fitzgibbons' son, Billy. While trapped in a bird cage, she overhears a telephone conversation between Farmer Fitzgibbon and Nim and learns that the Institute intends to exterminate the rats the very next day. Mrs. Brisby then escapes from the cage and runs off to warn the rats. The rats have begun moving the Brisby home, with the children inside using a rope and a pulley system during a rainstorm. Jenner, who wishes for the rats to remain in the rose bush, sabotages the assembly with his reluctant accomplice Sullivan, causing it to fall apart and crush Nicodemus to death. This is what we see. What little bit left of Nicodemus is there under the pulley. Mrs. Brisby arrives and tries to warn the rats about Nim's arrival, but Jenner attacks her and attempts to steal the amulet from her. Sullivan alerts Justin, who rushes to Mrs. Brisby's aid. Jenner mortally wounds Sullivan and engages Justin in a sword fight, which ends with Sullivan killing Jenner before dying himself. Meanwhile, the Brisby home begins to sink into a mud puddle, and the rats are unable to raise it because of the sabotage of the pulley. Mrs. Brisby wills herself and empowers the amulet, and it strikes up, and it lifts the house to move it safely. In that whole use the force with an amulet moment, which is kind of funny because it's like it is so use the force, Anyway, Justin leads the remaining rats along with Mrs. Brisby and her children to Thorn Valley afterwards. Rated G. And of course, we both give it 5 stars. This is just a wonderful film.
To me, this is as good as it gets.
Okay.
I mean, for me, there's really no other animated film like it.
Mm-hmm. And this is Don Bluth. For people who don't know who Don Bluth is, you may know of him for video game stuff like Dragon's Lair and Space Ace.
Mm-hmm.
But he's done many things. But this film and those 2 video games are what he's best known for, in my opinion.
That and American Tail and Land Before Time.
Yeah, those are a little, I guess so, but those are kind of like lesser known compared to the other 3, in my opinion. I could be wrong, but when you mention it, yeah, okay, I remember that. But when I hear the name Don Bluth, I think of Nim, Dragon's Lair, and Space Ace.
And for those who don't know, Don Bluth, John Pomeroy, and Gary Goldman started out at Disney, and they were at Disney in the 70s, and of course, this was the post-Walt years. Walt had died, and
go ahead.
This studio was kind of on shaky ground, and what had happened was they had begun to feel like Disney was getting away from the quality films that Disney used to do. And so there were kind of 2 groups at Disney. There was Don Bluth and people who liked him, who felt that Disney should go back to the classic style, Fantasia, Bambi, stuff like that. And then there were young people like Brad Bird who felt that Disney should really be embracing something new. Just like so that there were a lot of people at Disney that didn't like where Disney was at the time. It's just, some people felt Disney should go one way, and others felt Disney should go another way. And so finally, Don Bluth, Gary Goldman, and John Pomeroy led a walkout that got.
You got to remember what this film was. What the walkout was partly over. They pitched this film to Disney, and Disney turned it down because they did The Rescuers Down Under and said they didn't need another mouse film.
Right.
And that was kind of foolish. I mean, I think this was a little bit darker though, and Disney didn't want to go dark yet.
Yeah.
There's no musicals. There's no musicals. There's no,
Yeah.
It's a story, and Disney animation, like you said, there was 2 ideologies going on at the time. You had people who wanted to do the animated musical adventure stories, and then you wanted people who wanted to do the serious stuff and make it like a proper full feature film. And those 2 ideologies were not getting along at that time,
to say the least.
Yeah, and on top of that, you got to remember in the early 80s, this is when Disney was had already started breaking ground on Epcot. They were starting to build, they were investing a lot of money elsewhere. And it came to a point where it was more important to the people who were running Disney at the time to focus on live action for filmmaking. And you saw that shift in the early 80s towards more live filmmaking. And you also saw a shift more towards the not just Disney World, but Disneyland was being built up in California. They were starting to go overseas to Disney Japan, I think, or China.
Tokyo.
Yeah, Tokyo. And so a lot of the money that should have gone into animated studio was being taken out. And that's what the walkout was over. And that meant Don Bluth and John Pomeroy and others not only just formed their own studio and moved that other thing, they actually took something like 18 or 20% of not just the workforce that Disney had with them.
Mm-hmm.
They took actual contracts that Disney had, and the clients, said no, thank you, because they wanted Bluth. So when Bluth left, the contracts left Disney, and they lost a lot of money on that. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of resentment over that for decades.
Yeah, and this all happened during production of Fox and the Hound too. So, but yeah, so at that point, like they had Bluth and Company, they had already done a little TV special called Banjo the Woodpile Cat, and then while they were working on Secret of NIMH, they also did the animated sequence in Xanadu.
Right.
So, but this was their first fully featured film, and boy, did they knock it out of the park.
Yes, they did. And you have not shown your poster.
Nope. So, showing my fandom here, folks. So this is, of course, the original, which I think this poster is just absolutely beautiful. I just love this image.
Yeah.
The poster, and then I also
Tell me you've got a dragon cat.
No, I don't.
Damn.
No, I have the soundtrack on both vinyl and CD. This is, I think, the only album I have on both vinyl and CD. I got the CD when I was in college at Tower Records, for those who remember what that store was. And then later on, I was at Papa Jazz, which is a local record shop here in Columbia, and I came across the vinyl version. And then I don't normally double dip, but it's like, I figured I am never going to see this again anywhere. So I need to get this while I can. And sure enough, I haven't seen it anywhere since.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I'm sure if you wanted to hunt it down online, you probably could, but it probably costs a pretty penny.
Yeah. But the music for this film was done by the legendary Jerry Goldsmith. Again, look him up on IMDb if you don't know who he is. But this is one of my absolute favorite soundtracks, movie scores of all time.
Okay.
Well,
let's just put it this way. Jerry Goldsmith's known for doing Star Trek.
Yep. You did Star Trek. You did The Omen.
Right. Well, I'm going with something that most people will immediately identify. So, that's what I was mentioning that for. But, in case you don't want to go look on IMDb, you should, just to see how prolific he is. But,
but it's, and he actually said that this score was one of his all-time favorites. And again, considering the number of scores he wrote, that's really saying something. And in fact, he liked it so much that he actually volunteered an extra 3 weeks beyond the contractually obligated time he had to write the score, because he just wanted it to be as good as possible. So he actually volunteered an extra weeks to refine the score.
That's
And
cool.
and actually, if I'm correct in thinking, this was this Jerry Goldsmith was responsible for bringing this movie to the attention of Steven Spielberg, and because the same year that The Secret of Nim came out, Poltergeist came out, which Jerry Goldsmith scored also,
Mm-hmm.
and so Jerry introduced Steven Spielberg to The Secret of Nim. And I really think The Secret of Nim is the movie that made Steven Spielberg want to start producing animated films. So Jerry Goldsmith actually introduced Don Bluth to Steven Spielberg, and then they go off and do American Tail and Land Before Time, which is the first two films that animated films that Steven served as an executive producer on. And he later goes on to form Amblimation and does films like Balto.
Right.
So
That is interesting. I don't know. That's very possible. I don't know, but yeah, that's cool. Alrighty, we're almost through here. We got two more to go. Titan AE 2000, directed by Don Bluth and Gary Goldman, written or produced by Don Bluth, Gary Goldman, and David Kirshner. Screenplay by Ben Edlund, that's the guy who does The Tick, John August, and Joss Whedon. Well, I think everybody knows who Joss Whedon is. We've heard a lot about him recently.
yes,
Not very positive. Let's skip that. Story by Hans Bauer and Randall McCormick, starring Matt Damon, Bill Pullman, John Leguizamo, Nathan Lane, Janine Garofalo, and Drew Barrymore. Stellar cast, really. All of them have done good work, both in live action and animation, both before and after this. Production companies: Fox Animation Studios and David Kirshner Productions. Distributed by 20th Century Fox. June 16th, 2000. Runtime of an hour and 34 minutes. Now, this film did not receive the backing it should have. There was a lot of similar stuff that was going on with what was the one that we were just talking about? I can't remember. We were just talking about where the ownership of the thing transferred and they didn't back it because Warner Brothers didn't back it.
Cats don't dance.
Yeah, cats don't dance. I guess that's what it is. But this was a situation where Fox just didn't put money back into it to market it at all. And after spending a lot of money on this film, because not just for the animation, but for look at the cast. That's not cheap. But yeah, it just something else there. But let's go ahead and talk about what it's about. In 3028, humanity has mastered deep space travel and interacted with several alien species. A human invention called Project Titan alarms the Dredge, which is a pure energy-based alien species. As the Dredge start to attack Earth, Professor Sam Tucker, lead researcher for Project Titan, sends his son Kale on one of the evacuation ships with his alien friend Tucker and the other members of his team fly to Titan spacecraft into hyperspace. The Dredge mothership arrives and fires a directed energy weapon into Earth that completely destroys the planet, while debris from the explosion also destroys the moon. Surviving humans have become nomads, generally ridiculed by other alien species as, homeless type, people that have no place to be and they don't want them around. 15 years go by, and Kale now works at the salvage yard in an asteroid belt called Tau 14. He is tracked down by Joseph Corso, captain of the spaceship Valkyrie. Corso reveals that Tucker encoded a map to the Titan in the ring that he gave Kale. Tech tells Kale that humanity depends on finding the Titan. When Dredge attacked the salvage yard, Kale escapes aboard the Valkyrie with Corso and his crew. That crew is Akima, a human female pilot, along with Preed, Goon, and Stith, who are all aliens of various species. Um, Top left corner is Goon, I think. No, that's Stith, I think.
Yeah, Smith.
Stith, and then Akima is the female with the
Yep.
purple hair, and Kale. On the planet Shesharim, the Gaul interpret the map and discover the Titan is hidden in the Indali Nebula. Dredge fighters arrive, capturing Gale and Akima. The Dredge eventually discard Akima and extract the Titan's map from Kale. Corso's crew rescues Akima while Kale eventually escapes on a Dredge ship and then has to later rejoin the group. Excellent chase scene with the Dredge chasing him in a Dredge ship, and he gets to. It's a really fun animated sequence in that part of the movie. Kale's map has changed now, and it actually shows the Titan's final location. While resupplying at a human space station called New Bangkok, Kale and Akima discover, however, that Corso and Preed are planning to betray the Titan to the Dredge. They manage to escape the Valkyrie, but are stranded on New Bangkok with Corso and the rest of the crew set off for the Titan. With the help of New Bangkok's colonists, Kale and Akima salvage a small spaceship called the Phoenix and race to find the Titan before Corso does. They navigate through the ice field in the Indali Nebula and dock with the Titan before the Valkyrie arrives. They discover DNA samples of Earth animals and a pre-recorded holographic message left by Professor Tucker, who explains that the Titan was designed to create a new Earth-like planet. However, due to its escape from Earth before its destruction, its power cells were weakened out, and they don't have the energy left for the process. The message is interrupted by the arrival of Corso and Preed. Preed reveals himself to be working for the Dredge and betrays Corso while holding the three of them at gunpoint. Preed attempts to kill them, but Corso snaps his neck, killing him. He and Kale then fight until Corso falls into the depths of the ship. Moments later, the Dredge attack the Titan. Given that the Dredge are essentially beings of pure energy, Kale realizes that modifying the Titan to absorb the Dredge will re-energize the ship. Unfortunately, in order to put this plan into effect, he must repair a malfunctioning circuit breaker. He sets off to do this while the remaining crew of the Valkyrie distract the aliens. Corso, who survived and overheard Kale's plan, shows up and helps stall the Dredge and then sacrifices himself to complete the repairs. The Titan absorbs the Dredge mothership along with everything aboard and uses this gained power along with the ice field to generate a new habitable planet. And so they get on the planet, and Kale and Akima stand in the rain, gazing at the beauty of their new home, and discuss what this planet should be called. Stith and Goon bid Kale and Akima farewell before flying off on the Valkyrie ships, just as new human colony ships filled with humans who are anxious to start life anew approach the planet. Rated PG. I gave it 4 stars. Have you seen this one?
I have.
Okay.
I give it a 3.5.
Okay, that's fair. I just happen to really like the way they did certain character designs with it. I like Stith. I like Akima. I love the way they designed the planet, or the Titan itself. It's a nice science fiction story, and science fiction is kind of my jam, so that was more why I was interested in it at that time. Nice mixture of traditional cell animation and 3D, computer generated. The Dredge are all CG, and the ships it's a combination. There's traditional stuff going on, but there's CG stuff going on with the ships as well. It's a nice little story for what it is. It's not gonna like win any major awards or anything, but it's a good time.
Mm-hmm. So for me, the reasons I gave it only 3.5. For one thing, like we were talking about, the end on the Titan, where like Kale and Corso are fighting, and there's one point where Kale literally gets pinned and Corso comes out and he shoots the dredge, and then he says, maybe we can beat him after all. And considering everything that had gone on with Corso before, I felt like that was a really, really abrupt about face.
Yeah, right.
And it's like,
I totally agree with you on that. That's why he's got a 4 out of 5 and not a 5. But there's some other things in there I can understand that you probably didn't care for as well.
Well, and my main issue with it, for those who don't know, I'm a Christian. So, and I like to think that I'm pretty open-minded about things, but one thing about this movie that I've always never quite been able to come to grips with is the fact that human beings have found a way to create a planet, which to me means that they're playing God.
Okay. I can see what you're saying. It might have been better if they had found an uninhabited planet and just took all the stuff that was on the Titan ship and then transplanted it. That might have worked better. I could see that. But yeah, okay. Yeah, I get your point. I don't know if, I mean, I guess, some people would say, well, you're just being nitpicky, overly nitpicky or something, but I understand where you're coming from. So I think that's just it is something that I think is more your personal thing. But yeah, I mean, it could, if they'd done it where they just found a planet that was suitable, that was actually uninhabited, that would have been just as fine. They didn't have to do it the way they did it.
But I did like the voice cast in this movie. In particular, I really liked Nathan Lane because at this point, this movie was 2000. He had done Timon and the Lion King. He had done The Birdcage, and I think by this time he had done The Producers on Broadway. I'm not sure about that, but he was known for doing these more more flamboyant roles. And here's a character that, here he finally gets to do a character that isn't so flamboyant. He's more.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I know what you're getting at. The character's more chicken shit and everything. To be honest, I mean, he's not reserved. He's very excitable. I think he's. I think he's just as flamboyant. It's just presented differently.
Okay.
Because like I said, he's so excitable and nervous as a character.
Or he's devious.
That too. Hold on a second. Oh, okay.
So for me, that was Nathan Lane showing us a little bit more of what he did
of his depth. Yeah, that makes sense. What do you think of Janeane Garofalo's performance?
I liked it. When you think about it, here's this kangaroo alien type chick, and and she sounds like a badass. But then you think about little Janeane. She's just a tiny little thing. It's like, how do you do that? How do you bring that gravitas out? It's like there's one point where it's like, I am educated and well read. I have pride. I'm like, I love that line. That was.
Yep. Yeah, again, unfortunately, that as much as we love that line, guess who wrote that? Whedon.
Yeah.
That you know that's a Whedon line. But again, I think in history, because of the later stuff that Whedon gets accused of, I think that unfortunately this film's going to probably suffer for it, which is a shame. I hope it doesn't, but I think it will. Our last film.
And and one more thing, just so The Secret of Nim was Don Bluth's directorial debut,
Mm-hmm.
and Titan AE has been his latest film so far.
Really? He hasn't done anything since 2000?
Well, nothing that's been released. They've been trying to get Dragon's Lair made into a film for a long time.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Okay.
He does teach classes.
Mm-hmm.
He actually does theater productions at his house, which would be cool to see.
Yeah.
So, but nothing that's been released since Titan AE.
Wow. I did not realize that. Okay. Last film is Watership Down from 1978, directed by Martin Rosa and John Hubley, uncredited for John. Produced and screenplay by Martin Rosen, based on Watership Down novel by Richard Adams, starring John Hurt, Richard Bryars, Michael Graham Cox, Simon Cadell, Harry Andrews, and Zero Mostel. There are other people in the cast. I got that off of one source, and then the other source had a much larger cast. I decided to stick with what I got. No disrespect to the other members of the cast. It just space-wise, it was too much. Production company is, I don't know how to pronounce that, Nepenthe Productions, I guess. Same distributor. Release date October 19th, 1978 in the UK. Now, I've got conflicting information here. One site says that it was never released in theaters in the US. IMDb says it was released in the US on November. So I don't know.
I've never heard anybody say that it wasn't. So,
so it's kind of a weird one. Anyway, running time is an hour and 42 minutes. Now, I did not see this in the theaters. I would have been 6 when this came out.
I would have been 3.
Yeah, so we both saw this on video.
Yep.
I saw this when it was put out on Laserdisc in like 79 or 80. So it was like 8. It was a couple of years later, but not, And what it's about, in Lapine language mythology, the world was created by the god Frith. All animals were grass eaters living harmoniously. The rabbits multiplied and their appetite led to a food shortage. Frith ordered the rabbit prince El Hera to control his people, but was scoffed at. In retaliation, Frith gave special gifts to every animal, making some into predators to hunt the rabbits. Satisfied that El Hera had learned his lesson, Frith gave the rabbits gifts of speed and cunning. In the present, in a warren near Sandalford, and remember, this is all done in the UK. Everything's taking place in Europe. A rabbit seer named Fiver has an apocalyptic vision and takes his older brother Hazel to beg the chief for evacuation. The chief dismisses them and orders Captain Holly, the head of the Warren's Ausla police force, to stop those trying to leave. Fiver and Hazel, along with other rabbits named Bigwig, Blackberry, Pippin, Dandelion, Silver, and Violet, manage to escape, passing a sign meaningless to them. They don't know how to read, but they pass a sign that confirms a residential development is coming. And you can see them hopping out and past the sign and everything, going into the fog. They journey through the woods, avoiding several dangerous situations until Violet, the group's only only female, is killed by a hawk. The others eventually meet a rabbit named Cowslip, who invites them to his warren, where a farmer leaves Cowslip's group ample vegetables. They are grateful, but Fiver leaves when he senses something unsettling in the atmosphere. Bigwig follows, berating Fiver for causing tension when a snare catches Bigwig. Bigwig's friends manage to free him, and Fiver learns that the farmer is protecting and feeding Cowslip's warren so that he can snare other rabbits for his own meals. Thus, the group bitterly returns to its journey to find someplace else. And they do, and Bigwig does not die here. He continues to be with them, but he's pretty badly wounded. The rabbits discover Nut Hanger Farm, and that is just the worst name. But anyway, which contains a hutch of domesticated does. Nut Hanger Farm, where all the women are. You're really not trying to be adult here, are you? Before they can free the females, the farm cat and the dog chase them away. Later, they are found by Captain Holly, who recounts the destruction of Sandalford by humans, as well as the vicious rabbits called the Ephraphans. Fiver finally finds the hill he envisioned, Watership Down, where the group settles in with Hazel as their new chief. They soon befriend an injured black-headed seagull named Kahar, who flies out in search of does. That night, the rabbits return to Nut Hanger Farm to free the does, but an attempt to free them fails, which ends in Hazel getting shot. Fiver follows a vision of the mythical black rabbit to his injured brother. Kahar returns, and while pecking out buckshot from Hazel's leg with his beak, reports of the many does at the large Ephra warren. But they're worried about the chief of the Ephra, Rafa, I still can't pronounce it, Woundwort. And I would be concerned with him too, because that's what he looks like, blading out and frothing at the mouth like these are rabbits. And there's a dog that from the farm that's killing them. Captain Holly describes it as a dangerous totalitarian state, but Hazel feels they must go there. Bigwig infiltrates the warren and is made an Ausla officer by their cruel chief, General Woundwort. Bigwig recruits several potential escapees to his cause, including Blackavar and
Heisenflay.
What?
Heisenflay.
Heisenflay, yes. I was about to say something like that, but I knew you were saying it. With Kahar's help, the escapees find a boat to float down the river. That night, Kahar leaves for his homeland with the gratitude of the warren. Ephraphane trackers eventually do find Watership Down. Woundwort rejects Hazel's offer of peace and demands that all the deserters must be turned over or Watership Down will be wiped out. While Watership rabbits barricade their warren, Fiver slips into a trance in which he envisions a dog loose in the woods. His mumblings inspire Hazel to try and release the farm dog and lead it to the Ephraphans. And that's kind of what this scene is sort of about. And then this scene right here is Woundwort versus Hazel. They arrive in the farm, and Hazel unties the dog and releases it while Blackberry, Dandelion, and Heisenflay use themselves as bait to make the dog follow them. Meanwhile, when the Ephraphans break through Watership's defenses, Woundwort goes in alone. Blackavar attacks him, but is easily killed. Bigwig ambushes Woundwort, and they fight to a standstill when the dog arrives and starts attacking the Ephraphans. However, Woundwort abandons Bigwig and fearlessly attacks the dog. However, no trace of Woundwort is ever found, which leaves his fate a mystery. Several years later, an elderly Hazel is visited by the Black Rabbit. That's the symbol of death. You know, your Grim Reaper rabbit, who invites him to join his own Ausla, assuring him of Watership Down's perpetual safety. Reassured, Hazel accepts this and dies peacefully. The spirit follows the Black Rabbit through the woodland and trees towards the sun, which metamorphoses into Frith and the afterlife, as Frith's parting advice to El Ahara is heard once more. Rated PG, I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. What would you give it?
The same.
The same? Okay. I know I saw it around 80 or 81, so I was like 8 or 9 years old. And I saw it at school because I went to a private school and it was summer camp time and every day I just go there for summer camp basically. And they had the laser disc, and they played that. And I can remember being completely freaked out by this movie because of all the violence in it. You know, this is supposed to be funny rabbits. What are you killing a rabbit for?
Yeah, I think it's one of those movies like nothing.
It's really not a kid's movie. It's really
it's not.
It's not.
And I haven't read the book on which it's based, but I think this is one of those movies where like nothing really prepares you for it, even if you have heard about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like nothing really prepares you for your first time watching it.
Yeah. Well, the funny part of it is, the other thing that they got on Laserdisc was Jaws. And this is what you're showing us 8-year-olds. You know, it's like, if you don't behave, we're going to feed you to the rabid rabbits and then to the sharks. But yeah, I don't know. But that's my first memory of it, and I can remember later in life, like maybe 4th or 5th grade, they made us read Watership Down as a novel. And then they ran it again, you know, after you read the book, you know, and I got a completely different thing out of it. Now, partly it's because I was older and I knew what was coming, and I just read the book. I knew what was coming. But it still kind of leaves me this uneasy feeling whenever I watch it. It just takes me back to when I was that kid watching it the first time. And not many films actually give me that kind of reaction. So that's why I had to add this, because it's like, if there's a film that takes you back to the first time you saw it, that's an important movie to you. I don't know if you have that kind of same reaction or not, but
not for this film. I don't remember how I first heard about it. I think it was one of those times where I was at Blockbuster just browsing the shelves, and I saw it on VHS, and I just, you know, curiosity got the better of me, and I rented it, and yeah, and again, it's. It is definitely not a kids movie, but it's very beautifully done.
Oh, it's wonderfully done.
Beautifully done.
Yeah.
So I first saw it on VHS.
Okay, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. All right then, that's our show for tonight. Pardon me. Got something caught in my throat. That's better. We appreciate you watching. Almost the 2.5 hour mark, and we did 9 films. And I don't know what we're going to do next week. I don't know if you're available next week. Do you have any new?
I should be available.
Okay, then we'll figure out something over the next week. Let you guys know. Tomorrow around sometime between 11 and noon, I'll do the weekend live draw, and I'll be inking this piece right here. I'm going to go ahead and there you go. I'll be inking this piece tomorrow off the blue line. And Michael Pennock, who is the creator of the Recovery Incorporated, will be joining us again. And so that'll be around 11 a.m. or 12 p.m. in that range tomorrow. And we'll be on for about 2.5, 3 hours, see how far we get. And then I'll be back because I won't finish inking it in that span. I'll be back on Sunday again to ink it again and hopefully finish it. So if you want to reach me, you go ahead and reach me on Facebook at Lewis.BrightRaven, on Twitter at LewisBrightRave2, DeviantArt.com/BrightRaven, YouTube, Quoth the Raven, Lewis BrightRaven, email quotheravenlbr72@gmail.com. And if you don't reach me on Gmail, try LewisBrightRaven@yahoo.com. John, do you have an email that you want people to reach you If you like the opening credit music, John actually composed that.
Yes. You can reach me at greyfigaro@hotmail.com. That's GREYFIGARO at hotmail.com. Or I'm also on John Norris on Facebook.
There you go, greyfigaro@hotmail.com.
There you go.
So if you like the music that you see or hear when it runs right, it didn't run right tonight. I don't know why. Sometimes it does glitch. It's not the file. It's just something that happens once in a while on StreamYard. But yeah, he did the opening and closing theme. So we're gonna see you guys on the flip side. On Mondays, we do comics news and reviews. Wednesdays, we do what did you get this week. I might not be doing that for much longer on a specific day because, well, it's supposed to be what you guys get, and nobody ever comes and tells me what they got. We don't talk, so I don't know if I'm going to do that much longer. Thursday nights is roundtable talk, guest night, topical talk, and Friday nights is our genre night. And each week is a different genre. Sometimes with guests, sometimes I do it solo. This week I was working with John, and we'll see what's going on for next week. And again, live draw tomorrow, Saturday, either 11 a.m. or 12 noon for probably about 3 hours. We'll have Michael Pennick and I both doing, I'll be inking that page, and I don't know what Michael will be drawing, but it'll probably be story pages for Recovery Incorporated or something else related to Recovery Incorporated. It's his project. So we'll see you guys next time, and we do appreciate you being there.
Good night, folks.